Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, we are seeing hcltech ReactJs interview question and answers. So all the question answers which we are discussing in this video are based upon the real interview experience shared by the candidate. So let's start the video. First question which was asked in the interview was, what are semantic tags in HTML? So let's see how you can answer this question. So semantic tags, they clearly describe their meaning in a human and machine readable way. So semantic tags are nothing but they are going to describe the intent of the content, or they are going to describe the meaning of the content to the developers and to browsers. Let's see where they are useful. They are useful in accessibility. What is accessibility? Accessibility is a feature which we give in our web application for the people who have disability. For example, if they are not able to see, they are not able to hear, or they are having some physical disability, so for them we provide accessibility. So in accessibility we have something called as voiceovers or screen readers, so which is going to read the screens for the people who are not able to see. So if there is a person who is not able to see and still they want to access your websites, so they have to make use of these screen readers. Examples are NVDA and Mac voiceovers. So if you're making use of semantic tags, then these screen readers are going to properly read out the content for the people who are not able to see. So they might tell, readers might tell properly that if the user is in the header section, or they are in the main content, they are trying to fill the form, or they are trying to click on the button, or they are in the footer section. So screen readers are useful there, and for that we have to make use of semantic tags. Then semantic tags are helpful in SEO, that is search engine optimization. So if you want your application to rank better and get appeared in the top results whenever someone is trying to search on some keyword, then your website should have better ranking, should have good ranking. So for that purpose we have to use the semantic tags in our application, so that the search engine optimization is done properly for our application. Then it is also useful for readability. So let us suppose that some new intern or developer has joined your project, and your project is having 1000 or 2000 lines of code in one file, and you are just making use of some common general container like div. Then it will become difficult for them to understand that what is the content, whether it is for some header, or is it the main content, or is it the advertisement section. So it would become difficult for them to understand. So for that purpose you have to make use of semantic tags, because they are self-explanatory. They are going to convey their meaning to the developer, and it is helpful for maintainability of your code, and also for better readability. Examples of semantic tags are header, that is helpful for grouping the introductory content. Then we have nav, that is helpful for defining the navigation links. Then we have section, it is a standalone section of the content, helpful in grouping the content of the similar type. Then we have article, it is an independent piece of content. And footer, which is footer or the ending of the document and the page. Let's see the second question. What is difference between block element and inline element? So let's see the difference. First difference is, block elements, they take the full width. So if you are having any element and it is a block element, even if the width required by this element is only this much, they only require this much width, but still they are going to take the entire horizontal space. They will not let any other element to sit in the same horizontal space. They are going to take the entire width. And inline element, they take only the width which is required. So if this is a element which is inline element, then it is going to just require the amount of width which requires for this content. It is not going to take the entire horizontal width. Second difference is, block element, they start in the new line. So after this block element, if there is again a new block element, then it is going to start in the next line. So all the block elements, they start in the next line. They do not allow anyone else to be there in the same space. So they will take the entire width and they will start in the new line. Whereas coming to inline element, they do not start in new line. So if there is space left out, then inline element will get positioned here. So they will start in the same place, like the same width, wherever it is left out, at the same space it is going to start. Then block element, for block element we can set their width and height. So for if a element is block, then we can set the height and width with the pixels or any other property. So we can set their width and height, whereas inline element we cannot set their width and height by default, but in case we want to, then we have to make use of display inline block property, but by default we cannot set the height and width of the inline element. Examples of block elements are div and p, that is paragraph tag. An example of inline element, they are span and aa is the anchor tag. This is the difference between inline and block element. Let's see the third question. Third question is explain the different values of position property in css. So different values of position properties in css, by default we have static as the position property, that is element is positioned normally. Now next one is relative. So relative is one of the value which we can give to position property. So for relative, what does this mean? So if you're giving a property as relative position relative, then the element will be relative to its normal position. So let us suppose this is your element and you gave the position as relative, and this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, and this is the x-axis. So if you give top and left, it is going to position based upon its normal position. So if you give top as 10 pixels and left as 10 pixels, then it is going to get positioned from its normal position. Normal was this one, now it has got shifted. So from top it got shifted little bit, and from left it got shifted little bit. So this is how the relative works. Then we have the absolute. So absolute, they are positioned relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. So in case this is your element which is having position as absolute, then it is going to see any nearest ancestor who is having the position property. So let us suppose that there is an ancestor which is having position as relative. So this absolute is going to position itself according to the ancestor, according to the positioned ancestor. So left and right will be calculated from this parent, that is ancestor. Next is fixed. So fixed elements, they stay fixed to the viewport. So if this is your screen and you make chatbot or you're trying to sell a course, so that section you can make it as fixed. So even if you're scrolling, it will remain fixed in the same place, and they are fixed to viewport. This is about this is the fixed property. Then we have this sticky. So sticky, it is somewhere between relative and fixed. So if this is your application, this is the screen, then you are having a element with the property sticky. So what happens, till some time it is going to behave as relative. So once you have scrolled, that content has moved up, then what happens, it will become sticky. So some, like based upon whatever css you have given, it might get sticked here. So once that content has crossed, you have scrolled it, then it will become sticky. But if it is not scrolled, you are in the same place, then it will behave as relative. So this is about the sticky value of the position property. So example, you can see here you have the class name, and then if you want to give the position, so you can write anything. You can give here absolute, relative, fixed, or sticky. Yeah, these are the different values of the position property in css. Let's see the next question, that what are pseudo classes and pseudo elements in css. So let's see what are pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So pseudo classes, they define a special state of the element. So there can be different state of the element, right? If we are having any element, there it can have different states. For example, we can focus on that element, or we can hover on that element. Then there can be nth child of that element. If there is a container, it can have nth child, or it can be disabled. Disable is also one of the state of element. Or it can be checked. If it is a checkbox, we can see whether it is checked or unchecked. So these are different states of the element. Coming to pseudo element, it is helpful for styling a specific part of the element. So specific part, so let us suppose there is a p. Okay, this is an element, paragraph is an element. So specific part, for example, before or after, or the first letter. So inside this p, if I have written some word, then we can write first letter of this, or the first line. So if there is a div, then we can also check the first line. Okay, this is a specific part. So this is like before, this is after, this is the first letter, this is the first line. Or the placeholder, in input fields you have placeholders, right? that is also specific part of the elements. So these are the example of pseudo elements. Let's see a code example. So this is a button, this is our element. And what is hoover? Hoover is a state of the element, it is a special state of the element. So on hoover we are doing background as blue. So this is how you can write the css for the pseudo classes. And pseudo elements are nothing but the specific part of the element. So this is p, right? So in paragraph we might have the first line, we might have multiple lines, right? So we are checking a specific part, like only for first line I want to do their font weight as bold. So this is how you can write the css for pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So for pseudo classes you make use of this symbol, whereas for the pseudo elements you write it two times. So this is the difference. And definition wise you can see pseudo classes they define the special state, whereas pseudo element they are helpful for styling specific part of the element. And examples for pseudo classes which we discussed were hoover, focus, nth child, checked, disabled. An example for pseudo elements which we saw were before, after, and then first letter, first line, placeholder. So these are the example of pseudo elements. Let's see the fifth question. Move all the zeros to the end of the array. This was a coding question asked in the interview, where you are given a array which is having multiple values. So what you have to do, you have to get all the zeros. How many zeros are there? All the zeros should be placed at the last and all the values should be normal. So let's see how we can solve this question. We are making use of a function. So we have written function and move zeros, and it is expecting a array, which is the array which interviewer has given. So this is the array which interviewer will give you the input, that array you are expecting. And then what you're doing, you're taking the array and you're filtering the values which are not zero. Okay, this is the filter method, which is array method. So I've already made videos on the different array methods, so you can check those videos too. But yeah, for this question, so filter is nothing but it is a array method which is useful for filtering the elements based upon some condition. What is the condition? Condition we have seen is the elements which are not zero. So we are just getting the elements which are not zero. What are not zero? Zero is zero, not zero. This is false. Zero is equal to zero, right? So we will not take this. Then we have one, then zero not equal to 0, false. 3 not equal to 0, true. So we have 3. Then we have 12. Okay, so these are the elements which we will get in non-zero variable. Then we are filtering again the elements which are 0. How many zeros are there? So that we will store in zeros variable. So there are two zeros, right? So we will write 0 again and one more 0. Then at last what we are doing, we are returning. So we are getting all the values together, we are spreading, like we are making use of the spread operator. And then we are writing dot 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 non zeros. So what are non zeros? These are non zeros, 1 3 12. And what are zeros? There are two zeros. So these things we are putting in a common array and we are returning. And then we are making use of console.log. So console.log is going to log all the values here. So we can see what is the result which we have got. We have got result as 1 3 12 and 0 0. So this is how you can solve this question. Let's see the sixth question. How does JavaScript event loop works? So as we all know, JavaScript, it is a single threaded language. But in case we want to work on the asynchronous task, then we have to make use of event loop. So how it works is there is something called as call stack. So let's suppose that there is a call stack and it is helpful for it executes the synchronous code. So if there is a code here, it is basically helpful for executing the code. So if there is multiple lines of code, so what happens, one by one all the line of code will be put in your call stack. And call stack, it is having leaf order, that is last in first out. So the last code which was put in call stack, that will be executed first. So all of these codes will be put inside call stack so that they get executed in the call stack. Then we have web apis, that is helpful for handling the async task. Then we have task queue, which holds the task which holds the callback to be executed. And there are event loops. So let's see, now we have discussed on call stack, right? Then there is something called as promises and the set timeout, set interval. So there is a queue. Okay, here we have the queue section. In this queue we have the micro task queue and we have the macro task queue. Okay, so in micro task queue we have the promises callback function, and in macro task queue we have the set timeout, set interval, or input output. operations callback. So what happens, there is something called as event loop here. So event loop keeps checking the call stack whether it is empty or not. If it is having some value, then it will let the call stack execute, but in case it becomes empty, then event loop, whatever is this event loop, it is going to the it will go to the queue, that is task queue, and it will check that is there any priority item present, is there any callback, is there any callback to be executed. So in micro task queue we have promises, and in macro task queue we have set timeout, set interval. So promises, they have the higher priority, so micro task queues, they have the higher priority compared to macro task queue. So event loop, it will go and check is there anything to be done. So in case it sees that yes, there is a promise which has to be executed, so it will go and put that function in call stack, and then that code will get executed. Then again it will check is there anything priority. If there is no priority, then it will check the macro task queue, is there any set timeout, set interval to be done. So in case there is set timeout, set interval to be done, then it is going to put it in the call stack. So this is how the event loop works. So it is helpful for moving the tasks from the queue to the stack when stack is free. So this is our queue, this is our call stack. So event loop is helpful for moving the tasks from the queue to the stack when the stack is free, and it is helpful for managing the asynchronous behavior. Let's see the seventh question. Seventh question is, what is the difference between for each and map? So let's see the difference. For each and map. For each, it executes on the each element, so it is helpful for iterating over the each element, whereas map, it returns a new array and it is helpful for transforming the element of the array. And then next difference is, for each it doesn't return anything, whereas map, it returns a value, depends upon the callback, and it returns a new array. Now next difference is, for each, this cannot be chained, whereas map can be chained. So after map we can make use of filter also, so that is what is called as chained. So map can be chained, whereas for each cannot be chained. Let's see the code example. Here we have a array with 1 2 3, so we are just writing for each, and we are getting the value individually in this n, and then we are doing console.log of n. So it logs 1 2 3. So here you can see we didn't do any transformation, we are just trying to iterate over every element, so we did not get any array also, it is just giving you the values. It returns undefined, by the way. So console is what it is consoling, it returns undefined, whereas map, it is going to return you a array, and it is useful for transforming the array element. So here you have the array 1 2 3, then you're writing map, and then individually you are getting every value like 1 2 3, and you are multiplying every value with 2. So all these value will get accumulated in the doubled variable, will get saved in the doubled variable, and then you can do the console of this and you will get the value 243. So this is the difference between for each and map. So for each, it doesn't return anything, map returns new array. For each we cannot chain, whereas map we can chain it. So and for each, it is useful for iterating over every element, whereas map is useful for transforming the elements of the array. So this is the difference between for each and map. Let's see the next question. Eighth question is, what is the difference between package.json and package log JSON? So let's see the difference. Package.json, it contains the project metadata and the dependencies version ranges. So it is just having the metadata, that what are the libraries, what are the other stuffs like yeah, it can have like the third party libraries information, or the name of your project, version, description, and the dependencies, dev dependencies, and authors, and multiple things. So there can be multiple things. So it is basically containing the project's metadata and the dependency version ranges, whereas package log JSON, they record the actual installed dependency version. So whatever was installed at the time of development, they are going to record those installed dependency versions for exact reproducibility. Package log JSONs, they ensure the consistent installs across the environment. So that is the difference between package.json and package log JSON. So package.json, they contain the project's metadata and dependency versions, that's it, whereas package log JSONs, they contain the information about dependencies of dependencies and exact versions for the exact replication of whatever you have developed. So that's the difference. Now let's see the next question. What is virtual DOM and why does React use it? So virtual DOM, it is a in-memory representation of the real DOM, and it is a lightweight copy of our real DOM. And React updates the virtual DOM first. So if there is any change happening in our DOM, you are adding some element, you are removing some element, or whatever you're doing, so all the updates which are there, they are done in the virtual DOM, because it is lightweight copy. In case React has to do the same changes again and again in real DOM, it would be burden and it would make our website slow. So for that reason, React updates everything in the virtual DOM first, and it is going to do the comparison between the new DOM with the updated value and the old DOM. In case there is any changes, that is done by diffing algorithm. In case there is any change, then it applies only the necessary update to the real DOM. So not the entire DOM will be again built, so only the necessary changes will be done in the real DOM. So this is virtual DOM, and this is how the React uses virtual DOM. They make use of diffing algorithm to compare the changes, and it makes our UI updates faster. This is about the virtual DOM. Let's see the next question. What is controlled versus uncontrolled component in React? So controlled component, they form inputs managed via React state. So the form inputs, whatever are the form inputs or the states whichever are present, if you're typing anything, all the form inputs, they are managed via React states, that is use state. Use state is the hook which we use, or use reducer. So all of these things, all the inputs whichever is there in your app, they are managed by React state. They are called as controlled component. In case you are making use of ref to access the DOM values directly, then that component becomes uncontrolled component. So here we, if you are accessing the DOM element directly by ref, then there is no use of React state. There is something like you are directly accessing DOM value. That is why your component becomes uncontrolled. So if all these states, like all these states are managed by React, or all the input form inputs are managed by React state, then they are controlled. In case you are not making use of React state, you are making use of ref, then they become uncontrolled component. Controlled component, they give more control but more code. So we have to write more code in the controlled component. This is the difference between controlled and uncontrolled component. Let's see the next question. What are synthetic events in React? So synthetic events, so React's wrappers, synthetic events are, they are React's wrapper over the native browser events for cross browser compatibility. So there are multiple browsers and there are few native browser events. React provides the wrapper for these events, so that there is no confusion, or there should be no problem that something is, some events are working in some browser, they are not working in some other browser. So there should be cross browser compatibility. That is why React is providing the wrapper on all the native browser events. So that is called as synthetic event. So normalized event interface across the browser. And we don't use it like on we use it on daily basis, but we don't use it as synthetic event. It is a theoretical concept, but you should be knowing it for the interview. So these on click event, whatever you see, these are the synthetic events. Okay, so they are the React's wrapper over the native browser events for cross browser compatibility. Next question is, what is difference between use reducer and Redux, and what are the use cases? So use reducer when state depends upon the previous state. So use reducers are helpful for managing the states, and we have to make use of the Redux for global shared complex state. So if we want to store our data, our values in a global container, so that we can access it from any component of our application, then we have to make use of Redux. So difference, you can see use reducer and Redux. So first difference is use reducer, they are hook for local component state. Okay, use reducers, they are hook which are useful when the state depends upon the previous state, then we can make use of the use reducer, and they are local component state. Whereas Redux, they are global state management. Also Redux, this is third party, and use reducer is the hook in the React. Now second difference is it is good for medium complexity. So it is good for the medium complexity, whereas Redux, it is ideal for the large applications where we need to store the data at a global state. Now use reducer, they do not need a middleware, whereas Redux, it supports the middleware. There is a need of middleware like Redux Thunk or Redux Saga. So these are the difference between Redux and use reducer. So for use reducer, one more difference is you have to first take it from the third party library, whereas use reducer, it is the hook. Next question is how and when to use the use memo with an example. So use memo, again, it is a hook. It is useful for memoizing the expensive computations, and it prevents the recalculation unless the count changes. So let us suppose that there is a component, and then it is having function which is doing computation or calculation on the thousands of data, and in case that component keeps re-rendering, then you need not calculate the values again and again, right? If there is no change, you need not calculate it again and again, else it would add the delay to your application. Your application might become slow. So for that reason, we have to make use of the use memo hook. So use memo hook, it is having similar syntax like the use effect, where first argument is your callback function, and then there is a dependency array that if there is any change in count, then only do the expensive calculation. So this is a function, okay? This is a function which does the expensive calculation. So we are just doing checking that in case there is anything changing in the count, then only do the change, then only do the recalculation of expensive calculation, else don't do it. So it is going to cache your value, it is going to cache the calculated value, so that you need not do it again and again. So this is about use memo, and this is the example. Let's see the 14th question. Techniques to improve the performance in React app. So what are the different techniques which we can use to improve the performance in the React app? So the first is we have to make use of memoization. So for with memoization, we can do react.memo, which makes our component pure component, and it performs the shallow comparison in the props before changing or before rendering your component. Then we have use memo and use callback hook. So use memo is helpful for caching the calculated value, and use callback is helpful for caching the function, so that function are not recreated again and again. So with memo, for memoization, you can do the react dot, you can use the react dot memo or use memo use callback hooks. Then you can make use of lazy load component with react dot lazy. So you will call the component only when they are required, not at the beginning. Not everything will be loaded together. So only on demand your component will be loaded, that is lazily loaded. Then we have avoid unnecessary re-renders. We should avoid unnecessary re-renders of our components. We can make use of code splitting and dynamic input. So code splitting is also similar to lazy loading. So code splitting is like we are splitting our code into multiple components, and we will only have the important ones now, and afterwards whenever we feel like user might go into another component, we might get the dynamically import that new component. So that is code splitting. So we have to split our one huge module into different components, and we have to import that dynamically, and then we have to optimize the images and the assets to improve the performance in the React app. Now next question is explain the Redux flow. So Redux, how it normally flows is there is a UI component. If there is a UI component here, and then you click on the button as plus that you want to add something, then you are going to dispatch the action. So action is dispatched. Now from action, it is going to go to the reducer. So there might be multiple action, it is not like there will be one. There might be so many cases what we will be doing in our application, right? We might be doing plus, minus, division, or other things. So whatever, for every action there will be different, whatever is the value you're doing, whatever is the UI component, for everything there will be a different actions. Okay, you'll dispatch the different actions. So these are actions. So once you have dispatched the action, they will go to the reducer, and the state is updated here. So all the logics and all is written here, how you'll be storing, what you'll be storing. For plus you should be doing +1, for minus you should be doing -1. All these things are written in reducer. Reducers are basically the function, and from here it is stored in the global container called store. Okay, so this is where it is stored. So your value, that is count, will be stored as 1. So in case anyone wants any other screen, there, let us suppose that there are 5 screen who are trying to show the count in different ways, or they are using it for for some of their calculation, then they can subscribe to the store directly, and then they can get the updated value. Okay, then it is not like we have to pass the value from one component to another and we have to do prop drilling. That is not required with the store, that is with the Redux. So all of these component can directly subscribe to the store and get the latest value. So hooks, which we have to use it to dispatch hook, to dispatch the action, we make use of dispatch action. Yeah, so the hook which we have to use for sending the action, it is use dispatch hook, and to subscribe, to get the values, we have to make use of the use selector hook in the React. So there are two hooks useful in Redux. First is the use dispatch, and next one is the use selector hook. Let's see what is the explanation written. So this is action. So action is of the object. Yeah, actions are basically object, they are of the type object, and in this you will pass something called as type, that is add to do, whether you're trying to add to do, you're trying to remove the to do, or you have completed the to do. So different types are there. Here we had plus, minus, multiplication, division, right? Similarly we can have the type and we can pass the payload, that what do we want to store in our store. So that payload we can pass. Then we have reducer. Reducers, they are pure function to return the new state, they are going to return you the new state. Then store, it holds the entire app's state. And one way data flow ensures predictable and state update. So there is only one way data flow, right? This is the data flow, this is only you're just trying to access. So this is the one way data flow which is helpful for predictable state updates. So this is about the Redux flow. Now these were the questions which were answered in the technical round. So for the managerial round, these are the questions. So in managerial round, which was the second round of the hcltech interview, so questions which were answered in managerial, first question was describe how you manage the sprint planning under the tight deadlines. Second question was share a real scenario where you tackled a production bug. Now third question was system design, how would you design a scalable ticket booking app. And then the fourth question was how do you write the clean and reusable component. For clean you can mention about, like, reusable component you can do, and for the clean code you can also, like, whatever is your experience that you can say, plus you can also say about the ESLint and SonarLint, which is important factor for writing clean code. Then what was your role in sprint retrospectives. So this is also, this is where you can highlight what you have done, what is your role. This is an important question of how you can impress the interviewer. And the last question was how does your team implement these scrum ceremonies. So these were the managerial round questions. Let's see the HR round question. So in HR round, what were the question answers? First question was why are you looking for a change. Then second question was where do you see yourself in 2 to 3 years. So here don't say anything like okay, after 2 to 3 years I'm going to switch from here this company to. Don't say such things. Say that okay, I want to be a mentor, I want to mentor other new joinee or the freshers who are coming, and I want to take the responsibility of 1 or 2 applications. So these things you should be saying. Then the third question which was asked was are you open to relocation or hybrid work. So depending upon your personal things you can say whether you are open for relocation or hybrid work. Then the fourth question was what's your notice period and expected CTC. Fifth question was how do you handle the work life balance, and the last question was why do you want to join the HCL. So these were the question asked in the HR round. Yeah, so we have covered on all the technical questions and have also shared the managerial and HR round questions to you, which were asked in the HCL interview questions. And yeah, if you found this video to be helpful, then do give a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you have any feedback or suggestion, or you want me to make video on any other topic, then do let me know in the comment section. And thanks for watching everyone.